Hello everyone, this is Sebastian, aka BarbusCorpX for PokerVIP.com, and today I'm back with a two-part video series on Guts Poker. The second part will be a bit of a special part, but you gotta wait for that one. In the first part will be a pretty standard video, coaching video, strat video, just me playing two tables, because on the last video series I only played two tables instead of three, and people seem to like it, so gonna try that out a bit further. And yeah, let's jump right into the action without further ado and see what we can get ourselves into. If you want to have any more information about TonyBet, make sure to check out the Poker VIP site or check out my other parts on TonyBet. Especially in the first series, I was going decently in depth about like the site specifics. So if you want to have any more information about that, make sure to check out the first four-part series. Ace-Jack suited, pretty beautiful hand, especially the classy spades. And that's not the best flop. By the way, the left table is a 25 ml table, the right table a 10 ml table, as you can see, because, yeah, to mix it up a bit, I suppose, and the only other 25 ml table that was running was either heads up or three-handed. And I wanted to play 6 max. Jack 9 of spades, also a pretty beautiful hand. I'm gonna do something a bit out of line here. I'm gonna 3-bet this hand. Because there are two weaker players in the blinds, I'm supposing this rack in the cutoff will open a bit wider, so I'm gonna exploit that. I mean, the hand is not too bad anyways. Has decent playability. The blockers are not really good, to be quite honest, but the playability is pretty good. And we have two recreationals in the blinds, so I'm just assuming that the cutoff will open really, really wide here. If he's somewhat aware of the blinds, which I would suspect him to be aware. So I'm not expecting too much resistance here. As we get 4-bet. It's a pretty small 4-bet. I'm tempted to peel the Jack 9. I would call 10-9 suited here. I think Jack 9 is probably pushing it a bit. That being said, we do get pretty amazing odds. Actually, the odds are a bit too good. He's making it 2.2x being out of position. And we have a hand that's not struggling that much with like domination. I mean, he should not really have my Jack dominated, neither my 9. So in a way, my hand is kind of like 10-9. I'm actually going to give this a call. Somewhat loose, but justifiable, I think. Oh, that's a pretty good flop for him. He checks, which is pretty odd. I'm supposing he can easily check hand like queens here. Even aces can check here. I'm not really going to bluff a lot here, not with this. And if I had Jack 9 of diamonds, or Jack 9 of clubs, of course, I would. But with the Jack 9 of spades, I'm just going to check. Hope to bink a pair or something. Just gonna overcall the King 9. Not expecting too many folds if I isolate, and I don't really want to make a big isolate and play out of position versus multiple opponents with not that strong of a hand. The Jack 9 will check down and potentially bluff on the river. At this point, I kind of do feel like he doesn't have queens or aces. At the same time, the SPR is so small that he still might check some reasonable hands. We're gonna check down and then bluff some rivers. Like if he checks this river, it's kind of interesting. Kind of weird if he does, to be honest. We do block 9s, which doesn't help if you have a 4-bet that, yeah. Probably at the end, like, still queens is possible, aces is still possible. Ace queen makes some sense, even though the river sizing is not too fitting for that hand. The preflop call, by the way, is not mandatory. Just given this guy's a rack, assuming he's not going to be as nutted as some other guys are there, assuming he's going to have some sort of bluffs, Jack 9 suited is doing better than a hand like King Jack suited there. Just if you think about domination, he's usually not going to take Ace Jack or King Jack as a 4-bet. Sometimes maybe Ace Jack, but that's kind of stretching it, I suppose. So you're not really that dominated. And your playability is pretty great, and especially the price was just really amazing. He made it basically 2.2x being out of position, which is more so a sizing he should use while being in position when 4-betting. Like his sizing there should have been like 250 instead of 220. It's not a big difference, but it's a difference. So all of those things combined. Like if I had like 10-9 suited there, I would not even like think about it and basically snap call why this guy gets stacked. And it's pretty fine actually at the stack up. Yeah, if I had like 10-9 suited there, I would definitely snap call. Jack-9, bit more marginal, but not outrageous. Gonna 1/3 this flop for protection and value. He leads pot, just gonna let it go. I mean, we have so many better hands there to call than XI. As a general advice, if you don't feel too comfortable peeling 4-bets, even in position, you generally shouldn't do it a lot, because you're gonna make a decent bit of mistakes on a decent bit of boards. 4-bet range is obviously quite narrow, so we're gonna have to be pretty cautious. Like even if we do flop a pair, we're not just automatically gonna like go for it, which maybe a decent bit of players would. So yeah. But we can definitely peel 4-bets out of position, in position. Out of position it gets really dicey, like. But in position, definitely can throw in some calls there. Not for the sake of balance or anything, just basically due to raw pot odds and playability. So this guy is a recreational. This guy's also recreational. This guy's also recreational. What's going on? And this guy's a rec. This guy's a recreational. This guy's a recreational. This guy's a recreational. This guy's the same rec, and this guy's also recreational. So a bunch of recreationals. What's going on here? Limp raise. Once again we get decent odds, but this is like close again. If his limp raising range is actually only aces and kings, which it might, we're actually pretty fucked here, to be quite bold, but we get 2.5 to 1 and we have a fish behind which will also come along. Generally gonna play I'm gonna peel this. This will usually go 3-way, so our hand plays relatively good multi-way. It's not dominated by ace-king that much. Once again, we do completely with the flop, which is fine. Would be interesting to see like his hand here. Like hope this guy calls. I really want to see what he has here, limp raising. But I mean, he just also before min 3-bets, so I'm not gonna give his limp raise that much credit. He seems like a bit of a drooler, so yeah. And Queen 10 suited just has a bit too much of playability once again. And he didn't make it that big. There was like an overcall and then he only makes it 3x being in position. We get 2.5 to 1. And I kind of perceive the player behind to come along a lot as well, which kind of makes it a bit of a better spot because I would rather play 3-ways than heads up with my exact hand, because I'm not like looking to flop a 1-pair hand. I'm kind of basically trying to flop like a really good draw, or really bang off something good. Which then I would rather have it like if I flop trips, I would rather be 3-ways than heads up. Or if I flop like straight. So yeah. Kind of dicey situations already. Pretty interesting pre-flop stuff. We don't get into those situations a ton of the time in poker. So it's pretty cool that we got into 2 of those spots quite fast into the series. Right now we're chilling, waiting for a playable hand. I mean, we do have a playable hand. With 2 recreationals, I will open the 8-7 off. If one of those guys was a rec, I probably wouldn't. If it were like 2 recs, I would definitely not. Then again, if they were nit recs, I would open it. So you always have to be like aware of who's behind, who's in front. Like in the Jack-9 example, it's a bit of an assumptive thing to do, to say like, so there are 2 fish behind, so he will open the cutoff wider, but I mean, it's not that much of a stretch. And I do know this guy from like playing some volume here, and Like, basically whenever I was recording a video, this guy was in the pool. Whenever I was playing myself here, this guy was in the pool. So, he seems like a at least winning rag. It's like the least I can say about him. And also, like, so far I've not seen him do something weird, I think. So, if you don't see someone doing something weird over a decent bit of time, it usually means they are somewhat solid. This is like sketchy. I won't see bet this hand. I would see bet 8-10 with a heart, but 8-7 heart I'm gonna check back and then barrel some runouts. Right here we're gonna see bet relatively big. It's really dynamic board, lots of continues by him. Don't really want to make it too cheap for him. Interesting turn. I could see a decent bit of folds from hands like Ace-Jack with 1 diamond and like King-Jack can fold now. So we're gonna barrel again. We put like a 9 into a somewhat difficult spot. Probably with the regression we're gonna always get a call by a 9. But yeah, we're gonna bet relatively big still. We have obviously like a combo draw. And there are just some ace-highs and king-highs that can fold. Isolating the limper. Let's see if he limp raises again. I mean, this is a hand I would definitely call the limp raise with. I would not really. There's a rack in the blind and 2 recreationals, so it's like kind of close with the king 3. The rack in the blind, I'm just gonna fold. If this rack was like a recreational, I would definitely open. So he leads pot. Kind of interesting. Definitely not gonna fold my hand. If it was a bit better, I would probably raise. If I had like ace-10, I would probably raise this. With the jack-10, I'm just gonna bluff catch. Hope the turn isn't a king or a queen. Those are the worst cards. The 8 is pretty good. Ooh, and now he bets min, which is like really bizarre. I'm gonna raise this up and target a hand like 7-8, 8-9, 9-9, 7-7, 7-6 type of hand. 10-9. And we can get some protection versus a hand like king-queen if he still min bets that. And there's definitely some value to be had here. If he re-raises, I'm just gonna fold my hand. We do river the top 2. Hopefully it doesn't lead jam, because that really gets ugly then. 10x of diamonds is possible. But I'm not assuming he just min-bet calls and like ace-10 of diamonds, king-10 of diamonds, queen-10 of diamonds. I think that hand usually just bets big again. Yeah, this is like weird now. So he clearly is a fish. He clearly is a fish. He could have had like queen-jack doing this, but it's kind of rare. Oh, this is like a really interesting situation. I think I still have my time bank available, right? I hope I still have this 40 seconds. Yeah, cool. So he could have jacked him himself. He could have someone pair jack X. He could have a bluff occasionally. Could spares off event like 9s with a diamond. And as said, ace-10 of diamonds, king-10 of diamonds, and queen-10 of diamonds is usually just going to fire again on the turn. So what other diamonds can he have? Ace-6 of diamonds, 6-7 of diamonds. Are those hands really leading pots on the flop? I think I'm going to call this down, but I'm not too thrilled about it. I would fold aces here probably, but the jack-10 I'm going to call. Given blockers, given the actual strength of my hand, I'm going to call, but I'm not too happy. I'm assuming I'm mostly beat here, but probably good to 33%. I need to be good. And he does have the 10-5 of diamonds, which was pretty dominated on like the streets and just got down river. Which, as said, I wasn't assuming he has ace-10 of diamonds, queen-10 of diamonds, king-10 of diamonds, and like that makes some sense. But like realistically, how many combinations of those will I give him? Limp calling at MP. Limp calls 10-5 suited and MP versus cutoff. Leads pot on 10-6-3 rainbow. So I mean, just given the line, it's like, it's close. It's definitely close. But I think my hand is a bit too strong versus a fish who so far has like, I'm sitting at this table for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And so far he has like limp raised, he has like min 3 bets, and he has like limp called, let pots, min let into call, into let lead pot again. So overall, like his image really was like goofy. So pretty hard time folding my hand. Would not blame anyone for hero folding there, but I think it's at least close. And obviously we can't just be too results oriented there because he did have it. Okay. Right here I'm going to check because I totally annihilate this board and I do want the short stack to fire. Or hit a pair on the turn, preferably. Something like this. I do think he would step here a reasonable amount. He pots it, which is kind of interesting. I think I would go for a small raise. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to call and just let him spaz, because the SPR is already going to be pretty small on the turn and on river, so we can just let him spaz it off here. Daily quads. Realistically, this should seal the deal. If he has a pair, he's going to go broke. It's questionable whether he keeps on bluffing on this card. I think I'm just going to call again. Hope the river is not going to be an action killer. Hope there's not going to be like a overcard, or at least if there's like a queen, he's going to hit it. But I do think there's decent value in letting him spaz off here. And if he has aces, we're going to stack him regardless. So we're just going to call, letting him spaz. That's not a good river. If he has an ace, he's going to shove. If he has a bluff, we do want to let him bluff. And if he has an 8, he's probably going to check back now, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. Like, that river did kill our action. Let's see what he had. I mean, maybe he just didn't have anything. Where's the hand? Let's find it on the other screen and then show you. I'm capable of finding it. Where's the hand? The good old 6-4 offsuited. Here it is. So he did have the max hand. I think he was usually like able to see his hand here in the replayer. I mean, it's not the best replay, it's like just a text format, but oh, here it is. He marked king of clubs, 10 of spades, so he had king high. Probably not going to call a river lead, probably not going to call a turn jam. So, did everything right. He didn't bluff off on like supposedly the best river to ever bluff for him. Yeah. But yeah, him having king high kind of illustrates my point. Run 3-bet here versus the reg. Pretty standard 3-betting hands. SB versus button. Hopefully we don't face the 4-bet again. If we do face the 4-bet here, I'm just gonna let it go. Let it go. And once again, we do miss another flop, so not running too hot in those like 3-bet pots and so on. Just gonna check, give it up, especially if the cold call. Not assuming he's gonna fold a lot if I see bet like 1/3. So we're just gonna check folds. One day we will hit our flush draw. One day we will do it. And that's fine. Can't always hit it. We just did hit quads. And supposedly got the max value out of his hand. Really bizarre that he bluffs turn and flop. Maybe he wasn't even bluffing flop in turn. Maybe he thought king high is good. I don't really know. It's really weird. Maybe he thought he had shoulder value on the river. I mean, he checked pretty fast, so probably kind of did. So the guy which stacked us with the 10-5 of diamonds left the table, so that's always a bit of a tilter. So here we get almost 3-1, basically meaning we get about 27%, if my math is not totally wrong. We definitely have 27% versus range, so gotta call it Jack 10. Oh, chop it up. I'm not gonna 3-bet him again, just because I just 3-bet him twice. Just showed him also. Not gonna 3-bet him this time I would have hit the flop. I mean, somewhat. We would have hit a draw, it's not like we always get there either. But yeah, I just don't want to get too out of line versus rec. I think he will realize it if I like 3-bet him like any hand. Or every hand rather. This is weird. I usually would open here, but him being so short, I'm gonna just fold. Probably will work in some limps here. I could limp it. Generally not limping the small blind, but given his stack depth, it's probably reasonable. I'm gonna open the Jack 10. Once again, we'll call off if the small blind shoves. Never too fun if like there's like this under 10 BB stacker. Makes for a pretty weird game. I'm gonna fold Jack 10 off here. Folding to the 4x open of this and opening the 5s, calling off if he jams for sure. Waiting for a hand. So for example, the Jack 10 of spades hand, that would be a hand I would review later on. Because it's like a pretty interesting spot. I would like crunch in the numbers into Poker Stove, see how many combinations of like chops and like worst two pairs I have to give him in order to call them, right? I mean, he could also have a hand like Jack 8 suited. I mean, he has 10-5 suited, kind of showcasing how wide he is. So there's a chance he has a worst two pair like Jack 6 suited. He might just have checked all Jack 10 off combinations. Jack 8 is definitely a thing in his range. So like, would just basically put in the numbers and see how well I'm doing versus range. Would assume my equity versus range will be around 35 to 40% there. Obviously, depending on the assumptions, he leads here for half pot. We're just going to call. We're probably going to call another street, and I'm probably going to fold river. If the river is not going to be a good card for us, which there are a reasonable amount of, he bets pot, which is pretty scary, especially on this pretty dynamic card, which I'm assuming is somewhat improving him. Like, I don't think that like Jack 10, Jack 9 is generally going to barrel on this card, so I think he's way more likely to have value now. So I actually will let this go versus such a big bet. Fishes generally tend to be pretty face up with their sizings. Like if they're a bit big, they usually have a decent hand. If they're a bit small, they usually medium or marginal hands. The 10-9, if there were like 3 recreationals, I would open, given there's a rack in the blind, won't. Yeah, so Jack 10 would be a spot I would put in a poker solve and analyze, share with people, for example. Those are the spots we can review. I mean, I suppose for a lot of people that would just be a standard call on river. Maybe even a happy jam for the last 5 blinds or whatever there was left. But I don't think it's that clear. As said, I think we have like around 35 to 40% versus range. We do need 33% versus range, so I'm assuming we're going to make money on the call. But not a ton. King Queen versus Jack 9. Those short stack are doubling up. Kind of annoying. I mean, I would rather have him reload. Suppose if I ask him to reload, it's not going to do any good. I mean, he might not even have money, might not even have more money on here. The King 7, somewhat close. I'm going to push it towards an open. This guy, I think, hasn't 3-bet me so far, if I'm not totally wrong, and he's a recreational, so we're going to widen our range here a bit. But King 7 is definitely stretching us, while we do get min 3-bet, which, I mean, regardless of our hand, I'm not going to fold to a min 3-bet. I get 3 to 1, he's a fish. He min 3-bets. Or basically min 3-bets. I'm not going to fold. The pot odds are too good. This is like a really, really bad hand to call here. But given its min, I still can't fold it. But this is like, I'm really not happy about calling this hand. I mean, if it's flop, I'm somewhat happy. I'm assuming he actually checks back a reasonable amount of King X. He can bluff this turn with a hand like Jack 9, Jack 10, Ace Jack, Ace 10, or like even Ace 5 could bluff here. He just checks down. We do make a boat and probably not going to get any street of action. I'm going to go ahead and lead the river for around half pot, hoping he's going to call some sort of 10s, 8s, because he gets stubborn. Here we do get counterfeited. I'm not going to bluff here. I don't think ace high is going to fold. So yeah, here we're going to lead like half pot, hoping he still has a raise. I mean, yeah. Just a fold. Might just be ace high. Might just be who knows what, 9-8 suited. Could be a variety of things. Folding a 3-7, not gonna go too wild with my opens, even though the last open already was a bit wild. But yeah, I'm gonna call any 2 cards there versus the min 3-bet. Obviously I would never do anything versus a bigger 3-bet. While we're waiting patiently for our hand to play. Get into somewhat of a pot here. Check, check on the turn. King, interesting river. Leads small. Could mean anything. Just means he river the king. This guy has a better king and doesn't raise. I think that's a decently sized mistake. Even with his not that great of a kicker, as we have seen, his kicker still plays. Still beats the king 4. And his small lead, I mean, to be quite honest, I didn't see like the flop or turn action that much. I was like just glancing at it, but just given the river, I would have definitely raised the hand for small sizing. I think it's a small to decent mistake. Heads up, I probably would see bet this. Given the nature of a 3-ways spot, I won't see bet this. Checking back, trying to turn equity, trying to run a runner, something beautiful. I mean, maybe I have to go back and take back that I assume he's a decent back, because leading this board is pretty goddamn awful. Not gonna lie. That's definitely not a board you want to lead here. I mean, the only hand I could see him leading is like Jack-7 suited, which that's like the only hand I would assume is like somewhat reasonable. And then he checks back turn, leads flop, checks back turn, leads flop 3-ways. So this seems pretty awful already. I mean, what does he have? Ace-10? Probably something like Ace-10. But kind of regardless of what he has, I think it's awful. So probably gonna bet like half pot here, is my assumption. So he's probably gonna station him. That's really big, so now he's like wrapping Ace-8 plus 10-9. That was a pretty bizarre hand. Like when you see this, you instantly have to doubt him being a capable reg, because leading there is just pretty nonsensical. Opening a Queen Jack, relatively happy given how many weaker players are behind. Not the best flop. We do have a really weak backdoor straight. I'm not assuming we have a lot of fold equity given there are 2 recreationals. I'm just gonna check this. Hope to turn top pair. The 5-8 I'm also gonna check. I do have a pair, I don't need to bluff, and I can't really value bet. Just trying to check down, improve. Obviously folding turn quite easily. Still checking down the Queen Jack, trying to improve on the river to a pair. Potentially overbet bluffing river. Like if the big blind checks here relatively fast, I will overbet bluff. Even with the min raise, I won't bluff. If he would snap check, I would bet like 140 here. As a bluff. And it would have worked if he checks his hand. He min bets, basically saying, I want to burn 1 big blind. Cool. I mean, it's just 10 cents, but it's big blind. You don't have to burn that big blind, you know. Obviously pretty bad bluff by him there. I mean, yeah. So, pretty ambitious to assume it goes through 2 people enough of the time, even though it's like really small and it doesn't have to go through a lot. Still pretty awful. The Jack-9 suited, gonna more than likely see a flop. Be quite glad to see a flop. I mean, he checks. We have 2 options. We can check back and just realize, or we can pump out some pressure. I'm assuming he's not gonna limp raise us that much, so I'm actually gonna raise him. Kind of re-rolling on this. Sometimes get a fold. We are in position. Generally, we want to make a decent bit of money being in position. I'm gonna start this off with 1/3 c-bet. There are a reasonable amount of turns we can barrel, such as a king, an 8, a queen, a jack, a 9, maybe an ace. Probably not really an ace. We do pick up the kings. There's no small blind, so we already got robbed of a small blind. I'm gonna open quite small because there's no small blinds. That's not the best flop, but at least we do have to draw. I don't really see a big reason to bet. We're just gonna check, hope if he has like queen jack, he's gonna bluff or hit a pair and then pay off 2 streets. Generally checking back with the intention of calling turn or betting turn. There's a variety of hands worse than ours that can call us, involving like 9-8, 10-8, jack-10, 7-8 type of hands. So we're gonna bet the turn. And even if he does happen to have a hand like ace-deuce of spades, we have a reasonable amount of equity with that. Him tanking on river worries me a bit. It's also not the best card for me. It's pretty hard to get called by a 9 now. It's even hard to get called by a 10 now. I don't think he has that many queen X's, so I'm gonna check this back. Because I also think he has a reasonable of ace-deuce of spades still, so we're gonna check back and win versus 4-8 of, I guess 4-8 offsuit. So, we don't have the button, but we are effectively in the button. Kind of weird. Kind of weird. So yeah, as said in the start of the video, be prepared for the second part. It will be a bit of a surprise. Something new, something dicey. Hope a lot of people will enjoy it. But I will keep you hanging for a bit. And yeah, as always, any questions, any feedback, post them in the comments. Generally read all of it. And yeah, hope you got a decent bit of value out of it. Gonna cut it here soonish, while I will play this hand, and I will 3-bet this hand versus Reg. Maybe we will get one 3-bet through versus him. There we go. It's a good result. It's a good result. So I'm gonna sit out next big blind, which we generally should try to do. So to be quite honest, I don't always do it, but you should try to always do it. That's a good flop. Maybe we can get some dice here. I'm gonna isolate the 7s as this guy. I would overlimp some weaker pairs, but 7s is strong enough to isolate. See betting 190 cents here. Relatively dynamic board, decent bit of calls. Getting a snap fold is a bit depressing, but okay. Not the end of the world. There's this weaker guy. I'm not assuming he's the type of guy who's gonna bluff raise if I won 30 at least a lot. So I'm just gonna see bet relatively big. Hope to cooler one of his pairs, basically. The 10-7 with the backdoors, I'm gonna check happily. See a turn. It's not the worst turn. It's not the best turn. He bets one big blind. He did this as a bluff before. I'm just gonna call, and then if he bets small on river, I'm also gonna call. If he bets like pot, I'm probably gonna fold. The 10-7 just gonna go for a showdown. Especially versus a small blind flat range. Going for showdown. We beat a pair. So here, I don't really think I can raise this one. I think this is too thin. Given it, yeah. His bluffs can't call. Is he really gonna play a king like this? Doubtful. Just gonna call. But there's some argument to value raise. Is bottom pair gonna call? Unlikely. Obviously I would raise any ace there, but I would already raise an ace on the turn. So yeah, that's that. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you will be back for the special part 2, and have a nice grind. Have a nice evening. See you next time. Peace.